Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. Between now and August 10th, if you use this promo code, you will automatically be entered into a drawing where 4 winners will each win one of the Commander 2018 pre-constructed decks. See the description below for more details. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to Day 2 of official Commander 2018 previews. The big focus of the day was that Jund Matters deck. We saw a lot of cards that came from there. A couple cards that did come from some other decks too. We'll recap everything for you. Quickly before we get started though, just a really fast reminder, we're still running that promotion with Flipside Gaming. Check out in the description below for details as to how you might be able to win one of these Commander 2018 decks when they come out on August 10th. Also, our Patreon page is linked down below in the same spot, as well as some links to products on Amazon. These are all ways to help support the channel. And whether you look at those or not, it's all good. I just appreciate each and every one of you and what you bring to the channel. So without any further ado, let's get into it. We'll begin with Lord Windgrace. Now this was leaked yesterday and we talked about it at length in yesterday's video, so I won't go into all the details today. If you want to hear my thoughts on the card though, I'll link that video at the end of this one so you can catch up. But just for now, they showed us a better picture of it, so I just wanted to bring it to you. Really cool land-centric Planeswalker commander though, definitely. Blood Tracker. This is a black and 3 Vampire Wizard rare 2/2 with flying. Pay a black and 2 life. Put a +1/+1 counter on Blood Tracker. When Blood Tracker leaves the battlefield, draw a card for each +1/+1 counter on it. First off, I like that it leaves the battlefield. That opens a lot of wiggle room. It's not just if the creature dies, you get that to happen, but basically you could bounce it yourself, or if it gets exiled, you're still getting the ability, and that's great. Secondly, okay, it's a 2/2 for 4, not super exciting, but it does have flying and it does have that ability where it can pump, and I do like that, especially in a vampire deck. I would probably rather play this in a vampire deck than a regular Jund, say, land-centric deck, just because you are going to have more ways to gain life with lifelink and such, and you can exploit that ability even more. Now, granted, just generally in Commander, you have some extra life to play with, so it's not a bad ability just in a vacuum, but I do think there are some builds where it could be even better. I love the fact that you can do it within combat. I think that's pretty powerful and is a deterrent for some blockers at times. So overall, I think it's a fine card, and also it is a wizard that could come into play at times as well. Loyal Subordinate. A black and 2, it's a zombie, uncommon 3/1 with Menace and Lieutenant. We found out yesterday that that mechanic would be coming back. This time it says at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, each opponent loses 3 life. So it's a zombie, first off, and I think I would prefer this in a zombie tribal build because those tend to be a little more aggressive, but it's a fine 3-drop regardless, probably. A 3/1 menace, and at least that lieutenant ability does impact all opponents. I do like that. Nothing crazy here, but it's a fine card. Emissary of Grudges. A red and 5 Efreet. This is a rare 6/5 flying haste. When this enters the battlefield, secretly choose an opponent. Reveal the player you chose, choose new targets for target spell or ability if it's controlled by the chosen player, and if it targets you or a permanent you control. Activate this ability only once. Overall, I really like this card. I mean, it's a 6/5 flying haste for 6. You can't go wrong there. The ability is a nice little deterrent to keep people off your back too. Until you reveal the player that you chose, everyone's going to think twice about hitting you or your stuff with their spells or abilities. Now, this Jund deck is billed as a Land Matters deck, and it is. You'll see that as we go through the cards today. However, there are sub-themes, and one of the sub-themes that looks like it's pretty involved is the theme of getting everybody to try to attack each other and fight each other. And this particular card plays into that a little bit because it's trying to keep people off your back while the chaos is ensuing. So this could be even better based on your playstyle and how you decide to upgrade this deck. Fury Storm, 2 red and 2, instant rare. When you cast the spell, copy it for each time you cast your commander from the command zone this game. You may choose new targets for the copies. Copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So this is part of a cycle. Don't know if it will be a full cycle or maybe just 4 different ones considering there's 4 different decks, but we did see the blue one yesterday, and this is a fine card. I actually like this mechanic quite a bit because what we've seen so far, it looks like it's a decent spell, maybe a little overcosted initially, but as the game wears on, especially if someone's trying to hate out your commander a little bit, the card gets more and more powerful. If I just play a forecasting cost fork, that's usually okay in a multiplayer game because there's going to be a lot of big instants and sorceries flying around at some point. However, if I play this later in the game, the dream is you want to kind of storm off based on all the times you had to play your commander over the course of the game. That's really where you want to be. Will that happen all the time? No, of course not. But when it does, it's going to feel really good. Now, you could probably argue that this card's better in a build that's more instant and sorcery focused because you'll have more of your own stuff that you could fork. However, this is still fine just randomly in a multiplayer game because you don't have to just target your stuff. You can target anybody's instants and sorceries. Loyal Apprentice. Red and 1 creature human artificer uncommon with haste 2/1. Lieutenant. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. That token gains haste until end of turn. It's kind of nice that the token has haste so you can use it right away. That's pretty good. I assume this is in both the Jund deck because of that creature combat sub-theme as well as most likely in the Izzet deck we were looking at a lot yesterday because you're getting the Thopter tokens. Regardless though, this is a cheap creature and as long as you can keep your commander in play, it does yield a lot of benefit. Okay, this next card is very land-centric. Nesting Dragon. 2 red and 3, dragon rare, 5/4 with flying and landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 0/2 red dragon egg creature token with defender, and when this creature dies, create a 2/2 red dragon creature token with flying. Pay a red, this creature gets +1/+0 till end of turn. So of course this is a play on the already existing magic card Dragon Egg. You can create dragon eggs with this every time you play a land. That's kind of crazy, especially if you have a sack outlet. Play some lands, get some dragon eggs, sacrifice them, now you have 2/2 flying fire-breathing dragons. There sure isn't nothing wrong with that. This is also another good deterrent against some of the forced combat that this deck is trying to pull off. And this card on its own is pretty good as a 5/4 flyer for 5. Ultimately, this might be fun to try in a dragon deck, but definitely will be a good card in a Jund deck that's trying to bring lands into the battlefield. Reality Scramble. 2 red and 2, it's a sorcery rare. Put target permanent you own on the bottom of your library. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a card that shares a card type with that permanent. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This has Retrace, so you may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a land card in addition to paying its other cost. So that's where the land theme ties into this card. It's a high variance card. It only costs 4, and yes, when you're playing a multiplayer game, then you do have a little wiggle room to take risks like that. But I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of these high variance cards, and a lot of times I find myself taking them out, replacing them with something else. However, you might be able to work this a little bit. I like the fact that it has Retrace, which means you can do it multiple times. So even if you miss here and there, eventually, hopefully you'll hit something good. Maybe you're just getting rid of small creatures or token creatures trying to hit something larger, and that will eventually pay off if you have the ability to Retrace. And then hopefully you can make use of those lands in your graveyard later with other cards. So in a deck like the Jund deck where this will come in, I feel like it could be decent just because of that Retrace ability, if nothing else. Or you could think outside the box and take your Planeswalker, assuming there only is one Planeswalker in that deck, and use it to reset their loyalty. Now, if you do that, you would have to show all your opponents your entire deck, but you would be able to reset loyalty. Maybe that's going to be important from time to time. So think of it that way. There are a few little tricks that you can do to make it more consistent. If you only have a couple of a given card type, you could use this as a tutor that will put a card directly into play, for example. For the most part, though, it's just a high variance fun card. Crash of Rhino Beetles. This is a green and 4 insect rare 5/5 trample, and this will get +10/+10 as long as you control 10 or more lands. Obviously, it's a land-centric card, but getting 10 lands over the course of a game in Commander, no matter what deck you're playing, shouldn't be awfully hard. So this is a very versatile card. It has trample, which is nice. Not a lot to say about it. It's just a big beater. Loyal Guardian. Green and 4, it's a Rhino, uncommon 4/4 with trample, and it has Lieutenant. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. First off, this will be great in an Atraxa deck. I mean, any +1/+1 counters deck will want something like this. This is kind of awesome. Now, as far as the deck that it's coming in, I feel like it's going to be really good there too. Like I said, we've already seen at least 1 or 2 cards that follow this sub-theme. We're going to see more. But making everything attack and get people attacking is another thing this deck's trying to do. So it fits into that sub-theme too. Overall, there are a lot of uses for this. Token decks are another archetype that spring to mind. Very versatile card. Whiptongue Hydra. This is going to cost a green and 5. It's a Lizard Hydra rare 4/4 with reach. And when this enters the battlefield, destroy all creatures with flying. Put a +1/+1 counter on this for each creature destroyed this way. So when you're in green, you usually don't have a lot of flyers, and flyers sometimes can be tough to deal with. So this does make sense. It's a 4/4 for 6 with reach. That doesn't feel great, but that ability is going to be wonderful if there's some flyers out there. And in Commander, you're going to come across flyers in a multiplayer game. So I think this card's actually pretty decent. If there are no flyers, it's not going to feel real good when you draw it, but most of the time I think you'll have targets for it and it'll be just fine for you. Windgrace's Judgment. Green, black, 3, instant, rare. For any number of opponents, destroy target non-land permanent that player controls. I like that it says any number of opponents because you don't have to target everybody, so you can try to build an alliance, play some politics. They leave the door open for that, which is great. Aside from that, though, very powerful instant. 5 casting cost, instant speed, just get rid of a bunch of stuff. I like that a lot in a multiplayer game. Gets worse probably as the game drags on and you have less opponents, but early on, this could be a big swing for you. Xantcha Sleeper Agent. Okay, maybe one of my favorite cards of the day, and this is a callback to a very old card called Sleeper Agent. Red, black, 1, legendary creature, minion, rare, 5/5. When this enters the battlefield, an opponent of your choice gains control of it. This has to attack each combat if able, and can attack its owner or planeswalkers its owner controls. Pay 3, Xantcha's controller loses 2 life, and you draw a card. Any player may activate this ability. Alright, so this is a real cheap card that causes a ton of chaos. 3 casting costs, you give it to somebody, they have to attack with it, but they can't attack you. So eventually maybe they attack someone, maybe that person doesn't like that they were the one that got attacked, now they pay the 3 to draw a card and make the person lose 2 life that controls it, and everything just kind of goes crazy from there. This card is like an instigator, and the theming here that this is a sleeper agent causing all this chaos is awesome. I love this card. I don't know how amazing it's always going to be, but it's always going to be super fun, and I can see myself playing this anytime I'm in Rakdos colors, quite honestly. Gyrus, Waker of Corpses, Jundin X, legendary creature, Hydra. This is the mythic legendary creature, so this is going to be one of the cards you find in foil, much like the Planeswalker in the deck. And you can use this as your commander out of the box if you choose. It's a 0/0. When this enters the battlefield, it will enter with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the amount of mana spent to cast it. So in other words, if you made X 2, then it would be 5 +1/+1 counters because you paid the 3 and then 2. Whenever Gyrus attacks, you may exile target creature card with lesser power from your graveyard. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that card, and that's tapped and attacking, exile the token at the end of combat. And do remember, too, Commander Tax plays into this, so that will go towards the +1/+1 counters as well. Overall, I think this is a great creature. There's tons of value here. I mean, 3 just Jund colors, and then any amount of mana you can pour into it. You can have yourself a pretty sizable creature. It's going to probably die a number of times because you're going to be aggressive with this. It's going to want to attack. It's going to be bringing creatures out of the graveyard to turn into tokens to attack, even if it's just for a turn. This is probably a good card that could finish a game later on once you have a lot of things in your graveyard. Just keep the pressure on. So I actually like this a lot. And again, it plays more into the combat sub-theme that's going on in this particular deck as opposed to the land matter stuff. But I promise there's more land matters coming. Alright, this next one is the other mythic legendary, which will be foil. And again, this can be your commander out of the box. This was a Japanese language preview. Xanthus the Warweaver. Jundin 3, legendary creature spider, vigilance, reach, 5/5. All creatures attack each combat if able. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, put a +1/+1 counter on Xanthus the Warweaver. So, again, another card that's playing into this whole combat matters kind of theme, more so than the land matters theme, but again, that's fine because I kind of like it. It's weird because there's a lot of almost like Pillow Fort style cards in here, but this obviously isn't a Pillow Fort style deck out of the box. I'm sure you can mix and match some stuff in the future though. With that being said, I think this is actually kind of sweet. It pulls some of the pressure off you again because you don't have to worry about people necessarily attacking you, at least with smaller creatures, because they won't want to buff this thing. And I like that the trigger occurs as soon as the attack happens. So if someone attacks you with a creature, it gets the counter, you can block with a 6/6 right away. That's kind of awesome. Remember, this will have to attack too. However, because it has vigilance and because you're choosing which board state to attack into, and you're at the point once this is ready to attack that everyone else had to attack with creatures that were available anyway, most of the time you should find a relatively safe direction to point this. Now the only downside for me on this one is it costs 6, and that casting cost for what I'm getting does feel maybe a tad underwhelming. I saw this creature's art not too long ago, and I was kind of hoping for some kind of legendary spider that maybe would create little 1/2 spiders, almost like the dragon we saw earlier, like play the land and you get a 1/2 spider or something like that. I think that could have been really sweet, maybe in combination with some of these other abilities. But the way it stands now, I don't know. I'm a little disappointed in this one, and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with this card. I was just hoping for a little more. Ancient Stone Idol. This was actually previewed late yesterday after we did our video, so the intention of this card, I think, was to be part of the Is It deck. And this costs 10. It's an artifact creature golem, rare 12/12 with flash. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each attacking creature, trample, and when this dies, create a 6/12 colorless construct artifact creature token with trample. And I like the throwback here to Stone Idol Trap. That's actually pretty cool. Okay, so the Is It deck we know is running a lot of artifact tokens, and this is perfect for that deck because there's times you might be able to play this for free actually, or at least get the cost down low enough that it won't matter too much that it has that 10 casting cost. And you get a 12/12 trample creature once you get there. That's definitely worth your time. And if it does die, then it does get replaced with a 6/12 trample token. That's pretty formidable too. And also there's other cards that will take advantage of the tokens as we saw yesterday. So overall, this is a great card for that deck and can be a really good card probably in any number of go-wide strategies. Okay, let's move on to the reprints. Now, financially in these products, you don't tend to find a whole bunch of really expensive reprints or anything like that. Most of the cards we're going to look at are under $2 easily. But this first one comes to us from a Portuguese language preview. On your right, you see an older version of the card for reference. It's Ruinous Path. This is actually a good card for a Land Matters deck because it has the Awaken ability, and it's a great removal spell. Sorcery speed, sure, but only 3 to deal with a lot of problems that could come up. Okay, this one was a Spanish language preview, and on the right you see a more recent printing for reference, Chain Reaction. This one isn't looking for lands, it's actually looking for creatures. Basically, it's a high variance board sweep. I would probably take this out for a more reliable board sweep most of the time, but out of the box, it will be just fine for you at first. Here's the Japanese language preview. It's Budoka Gardener, which will turn into Dokai Weaver of Life. Now, this is a great card for a Lands Matter deck, and you're going to see a lot of these reprints going forward, in green especially, are consistent in that fact. Now, this was never reprinted, and it's actually a $3-4 card, so not a bad inclusion here. Centaur Vinecrasher. This one's looking for lands in the graveyard. I always thought this was an interesting card. Sometimes it's hard to make it work the way you want to. It can be a little inconsistent, but when it does work, it can work really well. Eidolon of Blossoms. Now, I think this actually got previewed maybe a little early. This does look like it belongs in the Bant Enchantment deck, which we'll be talking about either tomorrow or the next day. And if this belongs in that deck, yeah, a fantastic choice because this is a great reprint for that theme. Back to a card that is most likely in that Jund deck, Explosive Vegetation. This is fantastic for triggering landfall and to get more lands into play. Scoop Mob. This is a fun little reprint. Now, yeah, it has to survive back to your upkeep, and you, of course, have to have the 5 or more lands before it really is anything. It doesn't have evasion, which is awkward, but if it can stay alive, it will become huge. Rampaging Baloths. Good reprint here. Fine creature on its own. 6/6 trample for 6, but that landfall ability is what you really want. Alright, with that being said, those are the cards for today. We're going to be back tomorrow to recap everything that happens within the next 24 hours, and we'll do the same on Thursday. I assume on Friday we'll start getting deck lists, and we'll dig into those then. But until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.